All right, so I just got finished watching this movie called Inheritance. So we start with this girl named Laura. She grows up to being a district attorney. She's trying to sort through this big Renfield case that's coming up. Apparently this guy was satiring money through like multiple different companies and whatnot. So while she's talking to the press, we keep seeing this guy. He's like humming and hyperventilating and whatnot. As he tries to get into a car, his eyes start welling up and whatever like that, and he falls over, ends up dying in the car and crashing into a tree. And we find out the man that died was actually Lauren's father, Archer. And while she's talking to the press, one of the press people end up giving her the news, and she's just like, the fuck? So all this was happening while she was in court. Next thing we see, everybody back at their little summer beach cottage house. And Lauren's got a husband named Scott and a daughter named Claire. She's there with her mom, Catherine, and her brother, William. Her brother is actually the Deep from The Boys on the Amazon, you know what I'm saying, the Amazon show. But anyway, her brother, William, is actually trying to, get his candidacy so he could be mayor. And they're basically consoling mom, making sure everything's good. Then we got this guy by the name of Harold. He's like their security supervisor or whatever like that. So he's actually breaking around a will or inheritance if you want, you know what I'm saying, going towards the kids and the mom. The mom gets a nice chunk of change and a bunch of property. Will gets about 20 million and Lauren is getting like 1 million. So we're like, what the fuck is the favoritism about? Come to find out, Harold had to give Laura something personal, in the quarters or whatever. He ends up giving her this envelope which contains a key and a flash drive. And the flash drive is a video of her dad. Now, he's very vague with what he's talking about, but basically tells her she's got to take this secret to the grave and whatnot. So later on, after everybody leaves, she goes into this back wooded area or whatever. And she remembers this area where she was a kid just playing around, and her father was like, we don't need you playing around this area. So she goes over to it. It's like some tarp and leaves spread around there. She opens up the tarp, and it's actually a door. She puts in the key, opens up the door, and find out it's the damn bunker. She goes down there, it's about 6 or 7 different doors, but there's this door right in the middle. She goes inside the door and finds this man chained up. He's got this chain around his neck and shit attached to the wall. She sees him still moving and she just freaks out and runs out of the bunker. So after she had time to calm herself down, she comes back into the bunker to talk to this guy. She's trying to figure out what the fuck is he chained up in here. But he says, you ain't getting no answers until you get me like a steak, a baked potato, some cigarettes, some whiskey. Basically he wants a bunch of stuff, and then after that he'll tell her everything. So she comes back with all the food and cigarettes and beer and whatnot. Then he starts talking. He says his name is Morgan Warner. After she tries to come back with a mask on, and he's like, come on. And he starts telling her everything about her life, her kids, her peoples and everything. So obviously at that point, she's like, what the fuck's the point of me wearing the mask? Take the mask off. So the story goes like this. He actually knew her father. They would play poker, they'd be ego, gambling, tripping and all that stuff. So one night they was both drunk on the road and he ended up hitting some dude on the street. He's like, what the fuck? So basically they had to take him out in the woods and bury him or whatever like that. But Morgan said he didn't want to do it. He'd rather just, call the police and whatnot. Seeing how Archer had a business, he had a very lot to lose. He said, fuck that, whacked him across the head with a damn crowbar. And Archer locked Morgan up in his bunker. He's had this man in his bunker for 30 fucking years. And then I thought to myself, like anybody else would think, like, why didn't he just kill him? And then there was points where he actually tried to get Morgan a knife to off himself, but then Morgan was like, nah, I ain't doing that. He thought about it, but basically he survived for 30 years. I mean, he kept coming back to him, giving him food and shit, but you know it is. So then Laura's like, well, how come nobody's been looking for you? You know what I'm saying, like that? But Archer told people Morgan had stole some money from him or some profits or whatever like that and fled the country. And then basically had his files erased from existence. So that's why nobody ever came looking for him. So even at that explanation, Laura still doesn't believe the story. He's like, well, if I take you to the spot where the guy is buried, will you believe me then? So meanwhile, throughout the days, you got to understand, while all this is going on, she still got to go to this trial. She got to be there for her husband and child. Her brother William's been accused of scandals and whatnot, which is all allegations they're trying to smear his campaign and whatnot. Then Morgan brings up this lady named Sophia. Sophia was apparently somebody Archer been smashing for years and still was. But Laura don't believe none of that shit. So he gives her the address, she pays him a visit. She goes to this nicely set up hotel and knocks on the door, and there's Sophia. Basically, he set her up lovely. Then on top of that, she finds out she had a son named Alex. And she's like, yeah, well, technically, he's like your half-brother. So she leaves out there. She can't take it. Anxiety's hitting her and shit. There's one part I forgot to mention. The second time she went to go see Morgan, he was in there asleep. So she basically put his handprints up to a thing or whatever like that so he can get him certified. And she gonna send the handprints out to her DEA friend to try to figure out who this man really is. So he tells her it might take a minute, you know what I'm saying? Probably about a week or two, but he gonna get all the files on and go send it to the beach house. No emails, straight to the house. None of that tracing back to her and shit, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, back to current events. So she basically releases him, puts him in the car, so that way she can go and find the body. Now I don't know what the fuck she expects to find. It's been like 30 goddamn years. So he takes her to the spot, she starts digging, and then she finds some bones. Indicating that, yeah, that's the man that got buried 30 years ago. But even after all this evidence, she's still acting like she don't want to believe the shit. Now, back when they had a couple of talks, he had mentioned something to her about Gypsy Rose Incorporated. So when it's daytime is set, she's trying to go back to this case. She looks at all the corporations that this guy Winford was haggling, right? Turns out Gypsy Rose was one of the companies, but the name on the side said unknown. So this case actually might be part of her father's legacy. So it's like, the fuck? So she goes into Harold's office pissed off because Harold basically ain't telling this shit. He's like, hey, it's stuff you don't want to know. You know what I'm saying? But her feelings is way too deep in it. She wants to know everything. She's like, look, I don't want to be blindsided. We try to protect the family name. You know what I'm saying? He's like, yeah, that's what I've been doing for y'all for 30 years. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Does Harold know about Morgan? Then we get to this situation where she's talking to her mom and William. And she needs William needs her to be there for this little speech thing or whatever like that because of this whole smear campaign that people are trying to drag out or whatever like that. He's like, makes it look better if everybody's there, you know, to make sure he's popping. And then he's like, look, if it's about the money, I'll give you like half of that shit, you know, but she don't even want the money. In fact, I'm gonna tell you what she's gonna do with some of her money later on, but yeah. So after a while, throughout all the evidence, she actually starts to believe Morgan, but she's still conflicted, thinking to herself like, yeah, if I let you go, how I know you ain't gonna try to ruin our family or turn it back on? He's like, look, if you let me go, I'll just leave, get the fuck out. I've been up here for 30 years. I'm trying to live out the rest of my life. So she goes back to ask William, you know, some hypothetical questions. He's like, yeah, what would you do in a situation if a man was killed and blah, 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 blah. He's like, hey, to protect the family, I either pay him off or, you know, bury his body in a ditch somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Throw him in the river. Damn, William don't play that shit, straight to the point. So she comes back to Morgan. Morgan's like, you made a decision? So she basically put $1 million of her money in an offshore bank account, gave him $100,000 in cash, getting his passport, fake ID, all that shit set up. And she's got him ready to go to a different island. She's like, hey, if you ever come back, I'll kill you my fucking self. So basically, she's going to let him free. So she takes him to this little bay where this like airplane is. You know what I'm saying? Harold set up all the arrangements and whatnot. But Morgan had told Laura about this man named Jeffrey after she came and talked to him about this Gypsy Rose stuff. And he was like, who the fuck is Jeffrey? Jeffrey was a guy that was helping William with his campaign. Turns out, yeah, he's been doing some dirty dealings. He look, man, the family's all dirty. That's what it is. Yo, how the fuck you think you got to be a district attorney? Ain't nothing sunshine and roses over here out this bitch. And that was really the thing that gave her the confidence to spring Morgan. She gets Morgan on the plane, he's about to dip out. There you go. So now she's about to head back to the house. She's going to the bunker to clean up everything and take out the trash and get everything out of there. At the same time, her little officer forensic buddy found out about the DNA stuff, and he sent the package over to the house. But she doesn't get the message. Meanwhile, Catherine's at the house. She picks up the package. So while Laura's cleaning up the rest of the bunker, she sees this stuff on the side. It's like a syringe and whatever. It was like next to his bed. You think to yourself, what the fuck is that doing next there? Then she get the message about the package. She's like, oh shit, let me hurry up and clean this so I can get back to the house. She gets in the house, finds her mom in the office room, and found out that she actually opened up the package. Boy. What was in it was pictures of Morgan Freeman. I mean, not Morgan Freeman, Morgan Warner. But Morgan Warner was actually the guy that was buried that night. So you're thinking, who the fuck was this dude? Apparently, it's some dude named Carson. And he's wanted for like 10 different crimes. And mom was saying like, yo, this man is pure evil. This guy was in the fucking bunker. So the first thing Laura does, she goes driving. She goes back to where the plane was. Apparently, the plane is still there. She's searching the area and finds Harold Dundee dead as shit. Then she's thinking to herself, oh, fuck, I gotta go back to the house. She goes back to the house, it's damn near empty, but then she sees the light coming from the damn bunker. She goes over into the bunker, finds her mom just laid out. But it turns out Carson's at the other end of it, then he cuts the lights off. They end up having a scuffle, Laura ends up getting knocked out. Then we wake up, Laura's actually chained to the fucking wall. Mom's still laid out on the ground and shit. Now before all that, they got into a scuffle, he ended up kicking a gun out of her hand. I don't know where the gun went. So now we start getting a real story. So we thought her father died of a heart attack, right? So apparently at one of those visits that he took to see Morgan, aka Carson now, he ended up getting close to him enough to him and stabbing him with one of those syringes that she had found it. Turns out the syringe had poison in it. Now, why did it have poison in it? Because it was one of those things he saved up when Archer was trying to get Carson to off himself. And that's how our father Archer really died. When he was trying to escape and drive in the car and ends up driving into a tree. Then he says, yeah, it's a whole family reunion. Your mom knows all about me too. So we like, wait, what? So then he tells the real story. Turns out he was talking to her mom back in the day. They had a few drinks. They were trying to get it popping. She wouldn't want nothing to do with him like that. But then he basically threw her in the bed and sexually assaulted her. I was like, oh shit. This is when Archer found out about it and whipped Carson's ass and threw him in the car. Now, somewhere in between this story, Catherine was able to get herself home. And it was just Archer and Carson in the car for some reason. I guess he wanted to do the right thing and take him to jail. But before that happened, he ends up killing Morgan. You know, hitting his kid by accident, who was really Morgan. And that's when he did his part to bury him. And this is when Archer hit Carson over the head with the wrench, and that's how he got him locked in the bunker. So then they have this crazy-ass argument. Laura ends up stabbing him in his eyes with her fingernails and shit, like, because he gets too close to her or whatever. And throughout all this time, he just completely forgot about Catherine. He just kept his eyes set on Laura. And so then he just says, you still don't get it, do you? I'm your goddamn father. Right as he was saying that, Catherine shot him in his head, done deal, dead as shit. I guess when she was stumbling around, she found the gun or something like that. Now I'm thinking to myself, why wasn't he watching her? Did he have her take something and that's why she was stumbling around all slow and he just didn't think about it? Well, bottom line is Carson fucked up. So mom's basically like, hey, what are we doing with him now? I'm like, Laura's like, he's been wiped off the face of the earth for 30 years, so let's keep it that way. Last thing we see is both of them getting out the bunker, but before that, Laura starts spreading around kerosene and shit, lighting the whole fucking thing on fire. We see both of them just staring at the bunker, staring at it burning up and going on fire and all that. So yeah, Inheritance on Netflix. Shit was lit. Don't just take my word for it. Watch the movie.